Lena Hill had always believed in kindness, though life hadn't exactly been kind to her. At 26, she worked long shifts as a waitress at Sonny's Diner, a cozy spot tucked between an old bookstore and a laundromat in the small town of Brookvale. She'd grown up here, and though the town hadn't changed much over the years, her life had. Gone were the carefree days of childhood spent playing by the creek. Now she juggled bills, worries, and the relentless ache of making ends meet on a server's wage. Lena lived in a modest studio apartment a few blocks from the diner. The peeling wallpaper and occasional drafty nights didn't bother her as much as the perpetual uncertainty. Rent was due in 5 days, and she was still $50 short. The tips had been inconsistent, and even though she tried her best to stay optimistic, the strain was wearing her down. She worked double shifts when she could, but between utilities, groceries, and trying to save for her dream of attending nursing school, there was rarely a penny left over. It was a chilly Wednesday evening when she walked into the diner, a woman in her mid-30s with 2 small children. The woman looked tired but wore a warm smile, and the children's excitement at the smell of burgers and fries lit up the otherwise quiet night. Lena greeted them with her usual cheer, leading them to a booth near the window. She watched as the woman shared a quiet word with the kids, her eyes glancing at the menu and then at her children, who were eagerly pointing out their favorites. Lena could tell they didn't dine out often. She'd seen it before, families treating themselves to a rare night out, carefully calculating each order. She approached their table with her notepad, her own worries momentarily set aside. "Hi there, I'm Lena. What can I get for you tonight?" she asked, her tone warm and inviting. The woman smiled, her voice polite but a little hesitant. "We'll start with 2 kids' meals, and for me, I'll just have coffee." Lena felt a twinge in her chest. She knew how hard it could be to stretch $1, and something about this woman reminded her of her own childhood. Her mom had worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table after her dad left. They didn't eat out often, and when they did, it was a special occasion, always tinged with a quiet awareness of the cost. She smiled, jotting down the order. "Coming right up." The children's laughter filled the corner of the diner as they played with crayons and napkins, turning them into makeshift toys. Lena found herself smiling as she brought over their food, even slipping in an extra side of ketchup. She didn't linger, but she couldn't help noticing how happy the children seemed, how the woman shared small, meaningful glances with them despite her tired expression. As Lena cleared the plates and dropped off the check, the woman's face flushed. She whispered something to her oldest child, who fumbled with a small wallet. Lena didn't mean to overhear, but the words were unmistakable. The cards declined. Her heart sank. The woman looked up at Lena, apologetic but embarrassed. "I'm so sorry. I thought I had enough on this card. Let me." Lena held up a hand gently. "It's okay. I'll take care of it." The woman's eyes widened. No, I can't let you do that. We'll figure something out." "Maybe I can. Really, it's fine," Lena insisted, her voice soft but firm. "Let me cover it. It's on me." The woman looked at her, her expression a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "Thank you? I'll pay you back." "I promise." Lena shook her head. "Just pay it forward when you can." The family left with tearful thanks, and Lena returned to the counter, her own emotions a swirl of joy and worry. The $40 tab was a significant hit to her already strained budget. She glanced at the tip jar, knowing it wouldn't make up for the expense, but she didn't regret it. Something about that family's happiness had been worth every penny. Later that night, as Lena walked home under the glow of streetlights, she felt a familiar pang of doubt. Had she done the right thing? She was already behind on rent. Would she regret being generous when she couldn't even afford to be? Her mind wandered back to the woman's grateful eyes, the children's laughter, and the quiet promise to pay it forward. Despite her worries, Lena smiled. She might not have much, but but she had enough to help someone else. The days following Lena's act of kindness passed in their usual rhythm of long shifts and careful budgeting. The diner had its ups and downs, and Lena did her best to keep up, though the looming weight of her unpaid bills pressed heavily on her shoulders. Rent was due tomorrow, and she was still coming up short. By Saturday evening, the diner was bustling. The clinking of plates and cheerful chatter filled the air as Lena worked tirelessly, delivering orders and refilling drinks with her usual warmth. The rush was winding down when the door chimed, and Lena glanced up to see a tall, sharply dressed woman enter the diner. The woman looked familiar, though Lena couldn't place her right away. She wore a tailored blazer and carried a small leather briefcase, her presence immediately setting her apart from the usual crowd. Her eyes scanned the room before landing on Lena, and a smile broke across her face. "Hi there," Lena greeted her, slipping into her professional tone. "Table for one?" The woman shook her head, still smiling. "Actually, I was hoping to speak with you. Are you Lena?" Lena's heart skipped. She nodded, unsure what to expect. "That's me. How can I help you?" The woman gestured to an empty booth by the window. "Do you have a moment to sit down? I promise I won't take much of your time." Lena hesitated, glancing around the diner. The dinner rush had slowed, and her coworker gave her a reassuring nod from the counter, signaling that she could take a short break. With a polite smile, Lena led the woman to the booth and took a seat across from her. "What's this about?" Lena asked, folding her hands in her lap. The woman's smile softened, and Lena suddenly recognized her. It was the same woman she had helped earlier that week, though now she looked polished and confident, a stark contrast to the tired mother Lena had seen. "I don't know if you remember me," the woman began, her voice warm. "But a few nights ago, my kids and I were here. My card didn't work, and you covered our meal." Lena blinked, a flicker of recognition crossing her face. "Oh, of course. You had the two little ones. How are they?" "They're great," the woman said, her smile widening. "They couldn't stop talking about you for days. My youngest even made a little drawing to thank you." Lena chuckled softly. "That's sweet of them. I'm just glad everything worked out for you." The woman reached into her briefcase and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. "That's why I'm here. I wanted to thank you properly." Lena stared at the envelope, her brows knitting together in confusion. She hesitated before reaching for it, her fingers grazing the paper as she looked up at the woman. "You didn't have to do this," Lena said softly. "I really didn't expect anything in return." The woman smiled, her expression filled with warmth. "I know you didn't. That's exactly why I wanted to." Lena carefully opened the envelope, expecting maybe a small thank you note or a gift card. Instead, her breath caught in her throat as she pulled out a thick stack of $100 bills. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked back up. This is too much," Lena stammered. "I can't accept this." The woman reached across the table, her hand gently resting on Lena's. "Please, let me explain." Lena nodded slowly, still overwhelmed. The woman took a deep breath. "My name is Rachel Dawson. I don't usually talk about my work, but I run a nonprofit that helps single parents get back on their feet. That night at the diner, I wasn't just struggling financially, I was at my lowest. My husband passed away a year ago, and between funeral costs, medical bills, and taking care of my kids, I had nothing left. I was barely holding on." Lena's heart clenched as Rachel continued. "But you didn't hesitate. You saw me struggling and helped without asking for anything in return. That kindness reminded me of why I started my nonprofit in the first place. It pushed me to reach out to an old friend for help, and with their support, I was able to get back on my feet. Now, I'm finally in a position to give back." Rachel gestured to the envelope. "That's enough to cover your rent and then some. I know what it's like to struggle, Lena. You deserve a break." Lena's eyes burned with unshed tears. She was too proud to take charity, but this didn't feel like charity, it felt like fate. Like kindness coming full circle. I don't know what to say, Lena whispered. Say yes, Rachel said with a grin. And if it helps, consider it an investment. I heard you wanted to go to nursing school. Lena's eyes widened. How did you? Rachel chuckled. You talk about it a lot. The other waitresses mentioned it, and I could see the passion in your eyes when you helped my family. Lena let out a shaky breath, staring down at the money. For the first time in a long time, she felt hope, real, tangible hope. She met Rachel's gaze and smiled. Okay. Yes. Rachel beamed. Good. And if you ever need a job, my nonprofit could use someone like you. Someone who understands what it means to help others. Lena laughed, wiping at her damp cheeks. I think I'd like that. As Rachel stood to leave, she squeezed Lena's hand once more. Thank you, Lena. You changed my life that night. I just wanted to return the favor. Lena watched as Rachel walked out of the diner, feeling something shift inside her. Maybe life hadn't always been kind to her, but in that moment, she realized something. Kindness had a way of finding its way back. And maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. Lena sat in the booth long after Rachel left, staring at the envelope as if it might disappear at any moment. The weight of her struggles suddenly felt a little lighter, replaced by something she hadn't felt in a long time: relief. That night, as she walked home, the world seemed different. The cold air still bit at her skin, and her apartment was still small and drafty, but her heart was warm. She had a choice now. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving, she had a chance to move forward. She placed the money carefully inside her bedside drawer, making a silent promise to use it wisely. Before she drifted to sleep, she found herself imagining a future where she wasn't just a waitress struggling to get by, but a nurse, helping people the way Rachel had helped her. The following morning, Lena paid her rent with a wide smile, her landlord raising an eyebrow at her newfound confidence. You win the lottery or something? He joked. Something like that, Lena replied, her heart light. She spent the next few days researching nursing programs, making lists, and budgeting carefully. She'd need more than what Rachel had given her, but this was a start. And for once, she wasn't afraid to start. One evening, as she finished her shift at the diner, a familiar voice called her name. Lena! She turned to see Rachel standing near the door, a cup of coffee in hand and a knowing smile on her face. I was hoping to run into you, Rachel said, stepping closer. Have you thought about my offer? Lena hesitated. The one about your nonprofit? Rachel nodded. I could use someone like you. We help struggling families, and you know what that feels like. You'd be perfect for it. Lena chewed her lip, thinking. I still need to work here to save for school. Of course, Rachel said. But what if I offered part-time hours? Something flexible. You could help with outreach, coordinate donations, and maybe even mentor young mothers trying to get back on their feet. Lena's heart pounded. A job that actually made a difference. Something beyond just serving tables and scraping by. She thought about the way Rachel's eyes had lit up when she talked about helping people. The way kindness had come full circle. A slow smile spread across Lena's face. When do I start? Over the next few months, Lena's life transformed. She split her time between the diner and Rachel's nonprofit, learning how to manage donations, organize events, and support struggling families. She enrolled in nursing school, balancing classes and work with sheer determination. It wasn't easy. There were long nights, exhaustion, and moments of doubt. But for the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving. She was building something. One evening, after a long shift at the diner, a young mother walked in with a tired expression and two small children at her side. She looked at the menu hesitantly, then at her kids, clearly trying to do the math in her head. Lena smiled as she approached. "Hi there, I'm Lena. What can I get for you tonight?" The woman gave her a small, uncertain smile. "Just a coffee for me. And maybe one kid's meal to share." Lena's heart squeezed. She knew this story well. She glanced at the owner, who gave her a knowing nod. Then she turned back to the woman and smiled. "Don't worry about it," Lena said warmly. "Dinner's on me." The woman's eyes filled with tears. I can't let you do that." Lena simply shook her head. "Just pay it forward when you can." And with that, the cycle of kindness continued. As the mother wiped away a stray tear and thanked Lena with a grateful smile, something inside Lena settled. She had been in that exact position once, struggling, unsure, and trying to hide her hardships behind a polite smile. Now she had the power to make someone else's burden a little lighter, just as Rachel had done for her. That night, after closing up at the diner, Lena made her way to Rachel's office at the nonprofit. She had a shift there the next morning, but something told her she needed to talk to Rachel now. Rachel was still at her desk, surrounded by files and paperwork, when Lena knocked on the doorframe. "You work too much," Lena teased, stepping inside. Rachel chuckled, setting her pen down. "Takes one to know one. What's on your mind?" Lena hesitated before sitting down. "I helped someone tonight. A mom with 2 kids. She reminded me of you, of me, honestly. And it just made me realize I don't want to wait anymore." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Wait for what?" Lena took a deep breath. "To take the leap. To quit the diner and work here full-time. I know it's risky, but I feel like this is where I belong. Helping people, making a difference. I want to put everything into this and nursing school." Rachel's face broke into a wide smile. "Lena, I was hoping you'd say that." Lena blinked. "Really?" Rachel nodded. "You have the heart for this work, and I was actually thinking about offering you a full-time role. We've been expanding, and we need more people who understand what it means to struggle and still find the strength to help others." Lena laughed, relief flooding through her. "So, it looks like we were on the same page." Rachel leaned forward. "This isn't just a job, Lena. You're going to change lives. Are you ready for that?" Lena thought about all the late nights, the struggle, the moment she almost gave up. And then she thought about where she was now, working toward her dream, surrounded by people who believed in her. "I'm ready," she said, meaning every word. A week later, Lena walked into the diner for the last time as an employee. The decision had been bittersweet, but her boss understood. "You've got bigger things ahead, kid," he told her with a rare smile. "Don't forget about us when you're a big-shot nurse." Lena laughed. Never. She spent her first full day at the nonprofit helping a struggling single dad find childcare so he could start a new job. She assisted in organizing a food drive. She sat with a young mother who had just escaped an abusive relationship and listened, really listened, to her story. And for the first time in years, Lena didn't feel stuck. She felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Nursing school would be tough, and the nonprofit work was emotionally demanding. But every challenge felt worth it. One evening, after a long day at work, Lena received a text from an unknown number. "Hey Lena, it's Rachel. Just wanted to let you know that my kids still talk about you all the time. You inspired them. You inspire me. Hope you're doing well." Lena smiled as she typed back. "I'm doing more than well. I'm finally where I'm supposed to be." As she set her phone down and looked around at the office she now called home, she knew kindness had changed her life. And now, she was ready to change the world.